Where does those songs come from?
The GBI spells came from.
Yeah, they're indicating that they're going to be starting.
Rinpoche. Morning, Rinpoche. Rinpoche. Moga dele.
Ashirele akola. Rinpoche.
Rajakana Yakwe Sota Jaka Yakaso Gendu Matan Jetang, thanks to Bukonda Santo So immediately, Chidon Samara, Tashi Dele, Nicote and the Long La, Tashi Dele.
So Rinpoche, I'm saying first would like to say Dashi Delek to all of the Sangha who's joining us on the live stream from the various countries in all the directions in the world, mainly Campus Samdrop. So Dashi Delek to all of you and long life.
Dashi Delek Rinpoche. 不一些呢，opening prayer 先对了吧？
Opening prayers.
嗯
Are you doing it, Kempo, or what?
，yes, yes, I'm chanting.
Are you chanting? Okay, great. Tambo Quran so Kempo samrukung kyapsem.
Oh, Mother Saint Beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstacles who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and nations. May they experience happiness, be separate from suffering safely. Village in the still and surpass perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. Oh, Mother Saint Beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstacles who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and nations. May they experience happiness, be separate from suffering severely. I will establish them in the still and surpass perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. The Lord don't want to be done, no parasipe ge. Arpa tam je be parda je parase pa tam je so se be. Manam ka tam be sim je tam je dewa tam de. Long har tam jar yor de lana me. Yang da bar do be san jo rumbo je do bar sa. Thus, under achieving enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. We take refuge in the Kanduru Lama and the lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deity of the mandalas of Yadams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and the Dhamma gardens, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the example of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas invested the enlightened mind in the progress of the Bodhisattva's path, true for the benefit of all sentient beings giving birth to Bodhicitta, and apply myself to complete this stage of the path. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of Janarasta and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all Mother Sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. We skip 7 lamp branch prayer long one in the short mandala. The ground is sprinkling with the scented water and strewed with the flowers. It is adorned with the Meru, the spring mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and the moon. As the Buddha fear for it, may all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fear. To the Lama who possesses the 3 kayas, I offer the altar, inner and sacred offering. With my body, wealth, and all that is visible, please grant me supreme realization, enlightenment. Whatever merit I have gathered through postations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of enlightenment of all sentient beings, or this I dedicate. Om Guru Rena Mandala Punzamanga Samandra Savaran Samaya Om. So Mandala we chant Tibetan. Saye Bija Zoye Medo Ram Rab Linje Nye De Jimbande Sanje Yen La Me De Buwai Roke Nam Dai Yen De Jewar Shu Ko Son Yong Zo La Me Zo Nam La Se Nai San Son De Yin Ye Jin Ju Da Li Lon Jo Na yang se yong ye la la men jo ge ngu do zar de zo san ze wa dan jo je ya wa dan ye ze ye ran gu ye so wa ye ge wai ju ze dai ge je sa ba tam je zo be san jo se ngo gu ren a men dal kun za men ga sa men da sa wa ren sa ma ye a ho a equal refuge ornament of the world. Your fame provides the 3,000 words. You are the victor over Jatara with our dog. I bow at the feet of Father Jigdi Songgo. Continually I think of no one but you. Compassionate one grant your blessings. Dispel the darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I can realize the unliberated nature of mine. Cham dren je to men zam len jin. Đặc biệt tung sông yong lai cha, su me jar wai dor jen chang, han je den gong be yab lan de, te ta te sam je ju le mi, sin ye lo je du je jin, nyen ge men ba sar ne jang. Centered are the Tobar Zinjilo. Please stand aware of the Dharma of the true workers and their combination according to disposition and likewise the mental capacity of sentient beings. Sem je nam je sambata lo ye se dai je dawa. Che jong de non de ba ye, che jang ko lo kor de zo.
Mo do ye de jin ba, tam che jin ba den ba mo su na de ye de je je lo tam ta lo ta ma do ja ta ye ge ne zo le ro. Che to to tam jo jo ba je jo jo lo tam ta lo do ne zo ba ya. 라바다라 그 정가단 방이 어디지 겐들나야 삼살로 노저저저 telling 나랑 바마메라 저가 뭐 파모도 바자와 롱바 가지고 나만나서 오늘 취행적 보는 애들도 사실은요 뭐 라센트가 무슨 소리 봐 라면 저러서 근데 스스로 동아저다 주진 진짜 손에 보죠 아니라서 된지도 너네 당진아 담바 주제는 저도 주로는 바다시들이 들이 주로는 바 들이 알아더니 들이 답이 줄라더니 들이 낭세분 줄 왔다니 내 카페인 바상 차톡 대와 지 조금 신바 제 삶의 하코니 이제 좋아해요. 고도 좋아해. 이 생각 되겠다 버리지. 이 생각도 강치 못하고 이나 이 지난에 따라나 만나 소요래. 지난에들이 배나들이 와 대화를 교상 동에게 제냐. 이 사실은 뭐 남요래. 대그가 또 강이잖아. 전나 당보 사제를 가서 제네. 내가 뒤니시는 것이 딱히 당구요래. 상제를 가려서 심지 남는 상제니 오장로를 때문에 그만 대사 상제인데 샘디젤이 샘코랑 상제래지. 상제 카카 말이지. 샘코랑을 하시더라 상제했다고 요래지. 성되는 것보다 샘아 참새들 잡아. 딱 세면 다 참새들 잡아. 상제. 얘들 나가다고 가면 잡아. 그랬지, 동도 탐나, 대니를 사제지, 세미대로 또서는 랑게대로 랑게도거나, 이 사지시면 송, 랑게 대니 랑게 도절나, 사자치 못해 인성 사진이나 소고요에들 십지는 상진이들 sep지 탐지 상진이들 어떤 것도 서치가 나서고요 말이 대략적으로 니바라 조바저 뒤서고 가래서 옮기는 추구 시상 받게 내록된 추탐진 콘데 니가 추탐지 라는 게 싫었다 싫었어 가지고 보면 대송 같으니 대 강시업 가리지 생광을 랑시트 상제래서 생광을 랑시트 상제를 무리했어 대다고 좀 대 있는 들이 다 로를 두칼시 차송이나 제라들 딱 깨도 무슨 동의면 무슨 됐다고 로를 두서는 가게 차도 다들 온장 로를 좀 해줘 강리도 마음이 바나 답이 발라 다든지 이제 두바테 가도 되는데 딴 말은 뭐예요 말 매발아요 반지 나 매발아다든지 내가 그래야지 이 내록 될때 추적 뭐 제세처럼 산지가送걸 때 석을送的 사실 까빠들 산지 샷자트는 통통 산지 샷자트는 통내더니 살짝주라 단도 마세송 이 책이 뭐지 다양한 교관들은 이제 저거에 사바탕 샤 주바탕 제가 자라 그래서 동네에서 책들 사자집에서 좀 하나마도 이 강연이 말이 이때 다 사실이라고 하는 계속적으로 그리고 속에 그래서 로렌치는 되니까 다른 또 제가 요래 다티 강시 시셔야 해 라고 것도
Tashitele to all my Dharma friends. So, what we're going to speak about today is that how we can transform the inner mind through the holy Dharma. And so when we seek the temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness, we mainly accomplish that with the mind. And so because people have understood that, they ask questions. Questions arise regarding this topic. And so this mind is like a key or like a treasury house, and that has many treasures, many objects inside it. And so what the Buddha showed us is the cause of happiness and the causes of suffering. And now what's the purpose of showing that to us? So first what we need to do, we need to analyze our mind on the basis of the Buddha's teachings. So what did the Buddha essentially say? The Buddha said all beings are actually Buddhas. They are only obscured by adventitious stains. When these stains are removed, beings are real Buddhas. So what the Buddha is saying is that the very nature of your mind itself is the Buddha. There is no Buddha separate from your own mind. So what we call a Buddha is really the nature of your own mind. And the term Buddha in Tibetan is Sangye, and Sang means to have cleared away or separated yourself from all grasping at a concrete reality and all concepts in your mind. And it is the mind that is free, that has cleared away all extremes or limitations of eternalism and nihilism and so on. And then due to that clearing away, the second syllable of Sangye is Gye, and Gye means vast. So the mind has become vast like space. And it is said when you realize that, when you see that, then that's a Buddha, then you are a Buddha. So we need to realize our true nature. When you realize the true nature of your mind, that is actually Mahamudra, since we are talking about Mahamudra. So it is said in the Mahamudra teachings, when you see that the true reality of yourself, that seeing is Mahamudra. And that links to what the Buddha said, all beings are actually Buddhas. And when we just say that, no one will easily just resonate with that necessarily. But so then what Thigten will not maybe in the beginning understand what that means. And so Thigten Sumgen then also said in the Gong Chik, in the beginning, he said, the Buddha only showed the fundamental nature of all phenomena. That's really the Buddha's teachings. So the Buddha showed us the nature of all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, the fundamental, the true reality of things. And that is that your own mind is actually Buddha. And so then the confusion comes in when saying that you are a Buddha, then how come that there is so much suffering in the 6 realms of samsara? There's all this unbearable suffering. How do the 6 realms even come about if we all are Buddhas? So then we come back to the Buddha's quote, however, they are obscured by adventitious stains. The adventitious stain is the grasping at an I, at a self that doesn't actually exist. So this grasping, the thing that we are holding onto, when we look into it, there is really nothing there in reality. So we are holding onto the existence of something that does not actually exist. So we are clinging to the reality of a self and a me that does not actually exist. And that is to show then the nature of that, to introduce beings to that fundamental nature. That is really the essence of all the 84,000 teachings that the Buddha gave. And so the Buddha of this time and age, of this aeon, is the Buddha Shakyamuni. And the Buddha Shakyamuni, upon his enlightenment, describes the nature of the mind. He said it is profoundly peaceful, it is free from any elaborations, it is luminosity, and it is free from all extremes. So then the various Khenpos can teach more just about that, but in brief, it is a vast and peaceful and free from elaboration and so on. And so that basically describes what we call the nature of Mahamudra. Mahamudra is only that, when really it's nothing else than just that. And so now I'm going to introduce you to that more as a reminder to that, and in a way also as a Dharma discussion. So I'm going to explain that to you to the best of my own abilities, just on the basis of my own understanding.
대회들이 다 당고 토마들이더니 산지 쪽이 되게야 가다 뭐 송네더니 랑그 샘들한테 상제했단 말이에요. 샘들 거래지. 이 샘들이 상제에 있나? 이제 가야 되고 그래지. 오늘 상제에 말아 당시 라이 담탐체나 얘네 다다 이미 좀 적정한서 토마는 샘 토마테 상제에 담체다 라마도 예담 뻗어서 저 찍발해지. 예담도 진행이 아닌 다다래지. 어야. 얘네한테 받을 말을 또 그래 말 세고 내려 마통가 가리. 근데 니마 자이좀 왔다더니 어쩌 로버트 간이 성도 가리래지. 로버트 말 나오 잡아들래지. 제 로버트는 좀 땅 가리래지. 야. 생각서 어디 내 강남 어디 내열 생각은 나 봤다 그래지. 다들은 차포가 로네. 내가 나의 구발이 나 통야를 어려 그래. 야, 저거로 초악가를 저런 당고를 쏟았나. 나사도 아지. 나 가리들 나 류들 때는들이 풍부하더니 새벽 풍부하더니 그리고 누굴 류들도 막 잡아. 내가서 봐. 다 대답제 이유는 뭐 맞서 선거요래. 다 추적 뭐 제시도 뭐 대라고 선거요래. 이거는 무슨 학고고야 되니 샘들한테 로르트만 동네 옹아오냐 받을 것도 없어. 그래 나오냐 봐 대라 딱지 땅 대라 딱지 동아들 이 샘들 내려올 딱지 동. 이신에 다 한국에 고속 되저요래. 대회들이 샘들한테 내 값당 차토게 돼야 저버져 이봐. 내 값당 차토 내 값 피바당 차토 돼가도 피대 종은 내적고 피바다 내 같은 종은 사지했단 말이지. 가지고 따뜻한 낭발이든 나봤다 말이지. nga so리 되고 말이지. 저 샘데 요니 사계서로 로사요니 샘데 요니 샘대로 사계 딱요 요니 샘으로 사계 말이 막도서 집에 샘서 하나만 가까이요 말이지. 대외로지 샘대로 또나 들이 사제 집이는 거 동고 친구도 약간 처음을 깨나 변 도셔라가 로답지 답지 야가로 남처럼 감성 베시다를 세부터 와서 또 참아 생구세 좋아다 하고를 일날이 속되면 나서 만약에 일단 나와다라는 샘서 나와 샘서 타지 다 샘고 죽어라 딱 제대로 세쪽으로 달려가요 다다다 남치 포화는 남치 들어 딱 제대로 남발 시바에 딱 버려 들어 딱 제대로 되게 내와요 되겠어 왜요 되겠어 저 가리지를 무보다 심하게 지마 다진지서도 봐도 종료래 다진지서도 봐도 종료 들이빼는 저 잡지는 저 잡지 쳐대 범반이는 야람 다 편하자다 다 범반이래지 저 범반이 범반이 내 말이다 너 코레지 뺏기다 남 심적 알마다 하마오니 세들이 내가 박차고 내려지는들이 다진이지 내 샘낭이지 샘낭이지 다들 무보다 제발 라서가 다답지 대판도 샘즈바지 좀즈바지 이게 즈바송로 다음에 즈바지 무보를 심하시니 우리리 삼지도 진짜 로버 박차죠 이 박차들은 샘고 박차 샘고 싸우는 내가 들이로 박차되라고 그래 이 촬영을 해 다 들더니 니선도 다 탐제 되시죠 배를 님가가 나와 탐제 말하는 거니 양대다고 요래 대다고 다 되는데 배는 말할배 워토마다나 말하는 버치미나 고발롱도 잡아내는데 님가가 사와 탐제 야한 박사대 설사도에 님가가 말하면 제발 뻗다며 말이지 님가가 나치를 머리로 자리 로 갑자기 죽게 상무요니 리더들이 봐 쳐이 봐서 그래 나 토선잖아 들이 이거는 뭐지 말하고 박차들은 저거를 다시 박차들 가리가 똑같아 들이 무보다 치만 했더니 무보다 치만 따와 가리 다 다진이지 통도 들이세로 좋아만 몰았더니 무보지만 자당기를 두고 그러나 자당기를 박차성을 말고도 세계대로 마도나 자당이 박차대 영어요래 자당이 박차대 라바 자당이 차리도 이래 생각하고 달리 공상한 되고 야사 되고 거기도 야사 맞는 양코소라 그래 베티사를 제르티 소아티 가르치는 속도는 속도 되려면 다 말이지 오늘 샘 코로나 다 그래 샘 코로나 다 토토를 말이지 말하면 이제 막 찾을 거거든 내가 쌈 못하는 근데 다 싸웠으면 토도서는 다 지나 그래라리 저들만 지네들가 이제 포마 조조들은 소리 간비 죽은 좀 미세 양한테 지네들 주타면 파도가 처음하면 되는 갔다 버리지 들이 대는 로봇으로 쳤던 다 나서라 니오래 다 니네들이 레드 박차를 되네 들이 다 로봇으로 가사카라 지알 무슨도 다 통수 받에 코를 따철래 들이는 코와도 따철래 코와다 나한테 이제 쳤지 뒤로 싸움을 쳤다고는 들이 따서 따게만 보도 니 롱만 도롱만 보시게요 뒤 탐지 똑바로 출발 레레시 뒤체도 들이 사지게 다 추리봐봐 제시동 강사 레리니 볼래 추이 내가 출발 레리니 볼래 대송 들이동 소타성 레좀 제송 거들 레좀제 같이 이제는 다 줘야 합니다 됐어 그래야지 대략적인 것도 다 잡독 신을 톡톡사 다 돈담고 대봤더니 사기 좀 되게 다 돈담도 돈 많이 해서 들이 오믹다 와라 도와서 뛰는 판 세군 내릴 때또 올릴 때 공수 줄 띵바토를 어떻게 뛰는 사기다 되게 되니 랑 돌리면 되지 좋다고 그래 별은 차로 잡소나 쳐사고 돌래고 차로서 마셔도 그래. 조 체청을 되니 다 땅어서 잡지도 마시니들 토만이 생기는 게 내와다 대인상 삼대 총총라더니 뒤체가 되면 사지 삼치 삼대 치버려. 진짜 삼대 체청인데 조 체청만이들이 호와그니 뭐라 호사 사오고 나래지 감성 생기가 나다 나다 주바래지 얘나디 나디 주바는 뒤 나디 주바는 다 그래 상하고 초가서 로나 나서 그래 로아 생기한테 동해 자자 강내에서 콩땅 집지 나리 성지 나한테 가르치고 남이 또고 토해줘 또 많이 또 많이 그 나지님도 생콜로 나지님도 학원처럼 들이 다 제가 또 많이 때 연발을 들이 다 산속선 남아니죠 그래서 나지게 이보라 다 재미지 정말 저한테 다 무서워서 달라는데 왜나 재미 봐시 그 같이 뭐니 말에 재미 봐야지 그 내록되네요 들이 삼바탄 행지들 죽은 거 그래 단디지 인공받아 차로분이 보래지 니들 차체성 세당해지 장체성은 또 잘해지 때게 차당이야 난 저기 지들이 다 먹지 차당이가 쏘는 조구나 다 또 먹자고 말해 늘 가양매 받을 저런 남들 저기 사망고 차서는 처양만이만 나는 사양만이봐 내려고 차한 거래 그래서 제 차도 제 하고서 오다리 다 생들고 나오지 다는 생비 내맥지 생비 내맥까지 시작이지 늘 로망탄지 때서 대 하고는 지들이 딱서 좌를 내면에 학정이야 버렸지 주지 힘모도 자시는 거래 예를 때는 따따가 되는 것도 이제 다 이제 조른 쪽으로 배쪽으로 되는 양쪽들이 하고 그래 어떤 쪽으로 배야 버릴 때는 내로 조단 대답을 해야지
And so, when the Buddha first taught the Dharma, the first thing the Buddha really said was, tame your own mind. That is the Buddha's teachings. So, one's own mind is, and then also we say one's own mind is actually Buddha. So if my own mind is Buddha, then what is to be tamed? So even though your own mind is Buddha, and we have become obscured. Like it is said in a sadhana, when we supplicate to the deity, in the beginning, since the beginning, you and I were inseparable. So actually, our mind is not separate from the mind of the Buddha, of the Guru, the Yidam, the three jewels. So we actually are the same. My mind is the same as Chenrezig's mind. But then, in the middle, after that, since in the beginning we are the same, but then I have become obscured by ignorance. That means I have not seen the true nature of my mind. And this is where all confusion then comes from. So that's the meaning of beings are obscured by adventitious stains. So what is the adventitious stain? It is the perception of a me, an I. That is this adventitious or temporary stain. And that is what you should look at over and over again, when we speak about looking at the nature of your mind. Look at this meme that you suppose exists. And when you look at it, then it becomes just like space, and you see the space-like nature of the mind. So, for example, how you identify this me is, for example, when you're sitting there, and then you think of having a sip of tea or pouring some tea, and you think that this is my cup of tea, it's for me to drink. And then also when you drink it, and you think, but you experience a physical sensation. So there's one who experiences a physical sensation. Or for example, if a mosquito, a bug stings you or bites you, then you immediately have a reaction, a feeling to that. Like it stung me, it bit me. And what is it that is that me that is being bitten? It is actually the body. So you point at your body. And So what makes up our so-called self is those 5 aggregates, of which the body is one. And actually, even though we think that the body is the me, the self, we can't really find a self within the body. It doesn't exist there. So that is the fundamental ignorance, and from that arise the 6 afflictive emotions, and these multiply into the 84,000 afflictive emotions. So this is where they all arise from this momentary thought of an I, the I that just arises in this moment. This is my tea, for example. And so from that then proliferate all the other afflictions. So when we speak about like analyzing or looking at the nature of your mind, that is what we are looking at. It's this thought of I that arises in the mind. And so then, looking at the nature of the mind is related to the meditation of shamatha and vipassana and so on. And so it all comes down to the mind. So when we think about transforming the mind or finding happiness on a temporary and ultimate level, it all comes down to the mind. It is created through the mind. The temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness all come down to the mind. And that is really the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's teachings just introduce that, show you the true nature of the mind. And there's nothing else. And that is why it is said the Buddha's teachings are the only source of benefit and happiness. So some people maybe who are not Buddhists, they say, oh, they're Buddhists, we don't need that, we have no need for Buddhism. So even though people may think that way, if you look at the mind, Buddha, they are Buddhists, I'm not Buddhist. Actually, there is no outside Buddha separate from your mind. So you have a mind, and that very mind is what we call Buddha. There is no Buddha over there and you here. There is no separate Buddha from your mind. And realizing the nature of your mind is what we call realizing Mahamudra. In the Genji's Mahamudra, it says, there's this example of a big tree, and it says that when you cut through the root of a tree, then the multitudes of foliage, of the leaves and branches and so forth will all wither. And so, therefore, if you cut through the root of the mind, the multitude of thoughts will diminish. So the root comes down to the nature of the mind. And in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, the way things appear is your own mind. Meaning that we have to resolve that all appearances are one's own mind, our own mind. Whatever we perceive, we look at our mind and see that it actually is perceived just through that mind. All of the various appearances. And so the one who perceives it in the context of being in samsara is the consciousness. So the consciousness perceives everything, and so it is the consciousness that we need to analyze, look at. Consciousness is always here, and it is that consciousness that creates all your happiness and all of your suffering. And what is the cause of it? The cause of such creation, it is the grasping at a concrete reality and the reality of the thoughts in our mind. And that ultimately comes down to the dualistic grasping to self and other. For example, if you have 2 vases and you pick up some ocean water with each of the vases and you put them there, then you have 2 vases filled with water in front of you. And you think that, there's 2 vases and 2 kind of pots, and one is mine and one is his. So there's 2 different waters. One is mine and one is his. So that is how we basically think if we have not realized that the nature of our mind is actually one and the same. And we have not realized that due to our temporary habitual imprints in the mind. And these imprints basically arise from the dualistic grasping at self and other. So it all comes down to the dualistic perception. And through this dualistic perception, we begin to cling to our belief in a the concrete reality of appearances and also the reality of the thoughts in our mind. It is said that as long as there is grasping in the mind, you do not actually hold the ultimate view. Because the moment there is any kind of grasping or thought in the mind, you are grasping at the reality of your thoughts. So you think that this is how it is, it's real. And that is this adventitious, this temporary karmic imprint. And a karmic imprint is something that is accumulated with the mind. The mind keeps habituating to it. And then as a result of that, temporarily, the various karmic perceptions, habitual patterns proliferate and manifest as our experience, as our perception of reality. So it all comes down to believing in the reality of the universe and the sentient beings as being dual, separate from one another. And so that is actually related to the dream state as well. So we have a perception when we dream at night, and then also we have a waking perception during the daytime. And Milarepa had said, when you realize that the daytime waking perceptions and the dream perceptions are the same, you have mastered meditation. So that is actually, when we think about all of our activities that we engage in the daytime, all of our experiences in the daytime are just the karmic imprints that we have accumulated in previous lives, now manifesting before us. And there is not the slightest difference between those perceptions and our dream perceptions. Also, we think that I'm living a long life, like maybe 100 years, or some people think I'm 50 or 60 and so on. Actually, the body is just like a water bubble, and it can burst in any moment. So it won't be long until we go on beyond this life. Just like in a dream state, due to our karmic imprints in the mind, we continue to go on experiencing. And so this is due to the karmic imprint in the mind, and the root of those karmic imprints is the dualistic grasping at self and other. So it is because we perceive a dualistic existence that we believe in the concrete reality of appearances and the thoughts in our mind. And then due to that, various feelings arise in the mind. Feelings of attachment, feelings of aversion, and so on. And these thinking forms create the karmic imprints, the habitual tendencies. And the reason why they allow to proliferate in the mind is because of ignorance. Is because we have not realized the true nature of the mind. So because of ignorance, thoughts of attachment and aversion arise. Attachment and aversion are very coarse emotions. Their subtle counterpart are hope and fear. Just subtle thoughts like, for example, I need to sleep in a nice bed, in a comfortable bed. If it's not comfortable, that makes me angry. So there's a feeling that arises. Why? It arises because of the body. But the body is a compounded phenomenon and therefore impermanent. So when you look at the mind, however, the mind is unobstructed like space. So think about it when you think about these karmic imprints, reflect upon them in terms of, for example, the dream state. Think about your dream state. And then by reflecting in this way, you will really come to a conclusion, understanding the root of the mind. In the 37 practices, in the beginning, it says, Chenrezig is the one who has realized that although things neither come nor go, he strives single-pointedly for the sake of beings. So Chenrezig has realized that phenomena neither come nor go, because he realized that the mind is like space. But still, he strives single-pointedly for sentient beings. Because still there we are in samsara, experiencing the 6 realms of samsara due to our karmic imprints. and we perceive things as a reality. We think that everything really exists. And so, anyways, this is how samsara is created. And you come to a conclusion, you ascertain the nature of samsara and nirvana by really just looking at your mind. And so even though there is much to be said about that in the scriptures, in the various teachings, and how everything comes about, samsara and nirvana, it really comes down to confusion. Samsara arises out of a confused and deluded state of mind that does not recognize its own nature, its true nature. And all the teachings, even though there are many, are just for the sake of destroying this confusion. The 84,000 different teachings of the Buddha are just for that. There are many different teachings because they are all sorts of different sentient beings. And there is an antidote that destroys the confusion of each and every sentient being. So for each kind of delusion in the mind, there is a certain antidote. And so especially when we speak from the relative level of karma, cause and effect, it really becomes endless. There is no end to speaking of the Buddha's teachings on that level. But ultimately, it all is for the sake of realizing the ultimate reality. And the Buddha had said, the ultimate reality is that everything is empty of self-nature. And one way to realize that, for example, is through the Madhyamaka view, the middle way view. So it is a way to realize the empty nature of the mind, of all phenomena, but not just seeing that, also to gain stability in it. And once one has gained stability in it, one is not only able to liberate oneself, but one is able to liberate others. For example, it is like having many ice blocks floating on the ocean, and what melts them is heat or hot water. And if one's own water is hot, one is able to melt all of these ice blocks. Depending on how hot your water is, the more hot it is, the hotter it is, the more ice blocks will melt. Maybe take the refuge vow, for example. Starting from having taken the refuge vow, we say that in the beginning, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. And even the slightest happiness comes from love. That's the cause of happiness. And the more love you have, the more happiness you will have. All the Buddhas possess great love. So their heat, their warmth is much more powerful. And that warmth can burn or melt the ice block of self-grasping of sentient beings. Actually, when all the ice is melted, the mind of all the sentient beings in the three realms of samsara and my own mind are not separate. The mind is one and the same, but it doesn't appear that way because there is a perception of a self. Also that is mentioned in the Vajrayana, the secret mantra, sadhanas, for example, it always points out what is the cause of suffering of sentient beings. It comes down to the origin of grasping at a self. And when you look at that, it is empty of self-nature. There are no self and other that are separate. So that is the meaning of emptiness. And in order to realize that, we need to cultivate the two kinds of bodhicitta. First, on the relative level, the relative bodhicitta as an antidote to self-grasping, we have to cultivate the four immeasurables. So actually, when it comes to real practice, what we really have to actually put into practice is the four immeasurables. The four immeasurables are most important when it comes to realizing the nature of the mind too, because even though you are looking at the nature of your mind, you still need the warmth, the heat of love and compassion in order to melt the ice block of self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. In order to melt that, you need heat, and the heat is love and compassion. Otherwise, it is the mind is tossed between hot and cold kind of emotions, which, for example, when the mind gets very hot, when the mind gets angry, it gets very hot. And when an attachment desire is related to cold. And so then when these extreme heat and cold come together, they are unified by ignorance. So there's ignorance underlying them or unifying them. And so this hot and cold is also similar to you have water and you have earth. So it's the mind becomes neither water nor earth. So it's like you pour water into the earth, you have neither water nor earth, you have mud. So it becomes similar to that when the mind becomes like soaked in the heat and the cold of attachment and aversion. So it is like mixing water with the earth and making the mind become muddy. So when you understand this principle, you understand what is meant also with having to tame my own mind. And this is really the key to inner transformation. So what is the key actually? The key is wisdom. And because you disciples know that, you ask questions about that. So you ask, you request this kind of topic, this teaching, how can we transform? And that is really an excellent question, because this question really is a question about the actual essence of the Dharma. And this is something that you should continue to discuss with each other over and over again to deepen your understanding. But anyways, this is really an excellent question that really comes right down to the nature of the mind in terms of transformation.
소득이 좀 뭐데 대사들이 저세당 대로 책 설정돼 좀 들이 따라봐들 다번 나바가 사도 자리 사도 지금 나부 잡도 소리 손으로 또 그래 대로들 들이 쏙아서 차례 내가 세는 빙바 봐서 따도가 되게 좋으래 되게 되게 가는 데라고 차요 배는 내가 뭐 밖에서 취라 취지 맞지라 취들하는 손도 좀 줘야 돼 좀 사랑하는 애들이 취라들이 딱 계속 내 속라서 봐. 막어때 취 맛이 배종세래. 취 맛이 배종을 취중 말이지. 대다가 다시는 가래. 너를 샘도 싸워 가래. 장원을 하면 샘도 차당 소리만 한 거야. 장이 나또 소서 말홍신 따절로 만져서 만장 봐야지. 나또 소들 나또 너무 나또 소를 홍만 뒤치 버리 말이야. 샘광을 아시 되게 맞으면 나또 가까이 오 말이야. 나도 죽어야 되는데 라트 그래. 생물 맞으면 나도 가까이 오 말이지. 내 옷을 시가 대다가 차로에 대다가 점차서 봐서 서랑 샘 냠냠토로 따라 이제 말할 게 고만 냠냠토를 잡아서 냠냠토를 잡는데 또 단정 주변을 저를 벨코 그 가리나 남시 마음도 이시성 이시 광을 들인 나갔다 다 되면서 맞대리 대리 가는 거면 함께 잡아면 들이 소리도 바꿔요. 배때다가 또 세 전체도 바지다. semdevo che sama 전체도 봐. 실록 상황 배기 그랬어. 소소를 용띠를 그랬어. 중요해 그래. 용띠 중지 안 하는 걸 어디 단계 천조 맞다도 왜. 그 강의들 한 좀에서 보고는 삽질해 배발 고시 찍고서 사촉서는지 소리 차당매 봐. 뒤에 삽질해 배발은 되게 대준마체나 그 다디 쇼도요. 다디 매소 사바치 볼라도 세부 내려고 라시라왕 통고요. 세우광을 아실 님에도 다 받아 님에도 찍고 와서 차르들이 또 서로 정타서 받아지 파욕 참아 다나장 저스만 용띠가 소리 쌈 그래서 쌤들이 다상 쌤이 이 사제를 짜서 저거는 쌤이 세부 이자도 사제를 좋아 출력 짜서 저거는 이제 가고 출력 통제 피가 요랬어 출력시 받이 맨날 남가다 그래 람가를 말고 야 소타를 모달 사실을 내는 상한 남주다고 얼마때다고 차도 도름지들이 또 생활 내로 도름지를 쨌다들이 돈이 저 상남시 봐라 사람을 봐서 지탐이 용띠는 너는 탐지기 용띠들이 누구도 얼마들이 다상 소미 생고말 대바세미 생고말 사바세미 지금 지들이 노예요 말이 받아서 정적 감정을 때려 저는 받아면 돼. 내가 뒤니 다 내가 배봐잖아. 내가 가르쳐 보거든. 생로만 사바는 hin제 톡고 그랬지. 삼바는 hin제를 뒤니 내가 가르쳐 그래. 지와니 체랍을 토리 매일 무슨 소바. 점바 추천 소바 때니 점바를 때니 로조 추천을 때니 매일 소바를 때니 조상 뭐 체는 뭐 동지 발아서 봐. just did. 얘네들이 싹들이 시합을 뛰들이 탑톡을 산지 고방 통을 전례를 한통을 뛰래 내가 비바 탑톡 대화 되네 전례 한통이 딱딱 랑세군이야 제나티 내가 비바 탑톡 대화니 가르치하고 그래야 돼 원잠벌링이 따다 매일은 좋아하면지 딱딱 매일도 쭈박고 있으면 강지 얘는 가리리 양쪽마저 삼삼 사지 거기 살아서 타지고 미성스러운 이거 치고 자차를 매일 좋아 매일 돼. 저놈 치고 대회는 네가 비다다. 내가 펜타서 잡톡 대화 시반데 보바로 답이 지고 그래. 지도 저 같은 예시. 지 되는 참나더니 이마도 양말 굽다 랑게 칼아서 못 가는 거 털어내. 대답이 점이리 오면 지도 저 같은 예시. 고조 소리 고조 삼바다 hin제레스 삼바다 hin제 점바라들이 턱고 요래 pomo스로 도나서는 타다 들이 제레스 집을 세 깜짝 잡자고 그래서 하면서 뒤에서는 제가 메리고 말이지 제레스 내가 돌게 되었는데 이제 맞춰서 줘봤더라 그래도 제가 하고는 저다 뭐밖에 지도 고조 가를 디 수람 동안 때 사직을 남대 송시 사직의 체비가 이제 남대 송시 때는 타톡대와 사직 공방 능이 매번 대화시고 남파도 왜 엄마가 배때서 죽어 남파게 되지 사직 요래 남파도 남이 대 또로 다다랑들 이제 말을 배서 지독 이거 체면을 남파랑도 좀 봐야 돼 친구들하고 같이 관을 대화도 능이 말함다고 통도가 대답을 타톡 대화 대답을 올 때를 세무 때는 말이야 세열은 거 보고 가래 거 보라 말이야 가래 대답을 관을 당호랑 다낭 소미는 좀 탑. 니바 삼바 세미디 게 탑. 데르 다낭 데니 다시 감 좋다고 그러지. 삼바 세미디 내가 털게 되어 톡톡고 그러지. 대답을 뒤져서 강내송도 저 사바리 송도 직디 감면을 내가 멋지기는 데르 동에서 좀 대화도 동에 잠을 해요래. 뭐 가게 피했다고 해요래. 다 코레지. 다 루차다 센나 시당 차도 때라서 레 이제 서가 앞송데. 이제 뒤에서 뭐를 앞송. 점지에 끼직 삼을 안 소리지. 다당한 매일 뛰는 버터만 된 종을. 자차 장아를 같이 따는 버터만 돼서 집과 직장을 해시. 얘는 수남 미미 수남을 개발게 다들 소송. 다들 수남고 수남을 다시 모르지. 수남 가래리 삼제 sem나오는 때가 릉아 이서 사와 참지 simply 필요해. 이 배를 내버때 라는 철대와 타고 그러지. 대 서거지라고 서거지 그래. 지금은 세부 이제 되지 않은데 파핑다 라글 라그 집대지나. 라는 핀데 그래. 다도 니 매가 따라 들이다 집대 그러지. 라그 샤트를 라그 쓰나 어디에 박차를 뛰어서 비발라. 다들 들어나면 저기 사가요 그래. 나 생때 들었을 때서 생이요 말은 이선 나는 딱 같이 따서서도 나한테 생문제 땅도 신제 땅을 때도 동했다는 정도 우선 대인이 뭐랬더니 직대서 공개성 좀제게 직사발 하소이 두로 딱지 양다 돈 되게 삐팽이 거래 대비 우리 좀비로 매발이 술지라도 술 마시는 레드 비시와데 내 말에 해서 데르티는 따뜻 색대 온 거래 지도 보초거든요. 너무 문제래가 따라들려고 제발해. 대답을 하고는 일단 이제 싸워도 하고는 내가 필요하지. 내가 소리를 놓지 저라고 하고 그래. 다톡 대화라고 저라고 샘들이 라고 샘들 담아다냐 소소를 라고 대화래지. 사지 각하는 요 말이지. 대답을 싸움하는 들이 미시 지지를 들이라고 등이라고 이시지 그러지. 라고 샘도 존나 맥시고 그런 말이지. 내가 그렇게 하고서는 들이 사제성 답절이 때도 고아차 들이 양도양게 냠이 제들이 근데 뭐가 냠양당 들어가서 누기 쪽가리 뉴문말이 뉴문바테 가르치고도 뉴문바테 우리에서 뉴문 똑같아 똑만이 동담도 똑만이 왜 제당 공부를 하면 시합게 야 제당도 짜고 하고 다시 나가도 제대로 말아 배때도 뭐 똥만이지. 다시 놈이 실렸었는데 대답들이 나도 죽을 줄 놈이 실린 줄 대답이 뭐 어쩌고 차대요. 책에서 오늘 대답을 이런 거래. 뒤에서 저는 놈이 지는 난 세부들이 다 동달때 태블. 그래서 다들 뭐만 놈들 와서 타톡 대화도 세부 내려고 좀 거래. 내가 대화들이 그것도 좀 얘기했더니 이런 거래. 저 차와요들이 수남사도 이런 피면사와 타다 돼서 남래지. 대답도 하고는 드리다도 내가 피만 타도 내밀을 한 거라는 거지. 서투가 되고 말해야지.
So now we in this world we're practicing the Holy Dharma, and so in this world we have two systems. There's only two systems in this world. There is the Dharma, the religious systems, and then there is the mundane systems of the humans. And in the various religious systems, for example, all kinds of different teachers have appeared in this world. And there's different lineages and different traditions, and they're all upholding their lineages, their traditions. And then often it is because of that a lot of criticism toward religions arise. It is because of this debate, ongoing debate between different religions or lineages. And actually, from the perspective of the scholars, the debate, the so seeming criticism or the debate between the traditions is actually not criticism, but it is like a mutual refining of each other's understanding of the Dharma. So we are actually polishing our understanding of the Dharma, even though the words may come out as criticism. Actually, that's not what they really are, because there is no grasping in those scholars' mind. Actually, such debate is meant to clear away all faults, all criticism. Is meant to clarify things. Also, now, in terms of looking at faults and qualities, in the Sakya, or Sakya Pandita had said that when we look at faults, so we have to look at the qualities of others. It is just like polishing. We are polishing gold, so we have to analyze them. But then when we try to look at discrepancies and mistakes and so on, then they said don't look at that. So then that only leads to faults. So don't analyze those discrepancies and faults, but analyze the good quality of the Dharma. This is what is meant with analysis, not looking at it in a critical way, but looking at the good sides of it. And in this way, we should also look at our own mind and at others. So, and this is also how then an unbiased mind and the pure perception arises. And when that arises, then you become free of all bias in terms of various Dharma traditions and pure and impure and so forth. All the fixation becomes cleared away. But when there is grasping in the mind, for example, in the 7 verses of supplication to Tara, it says, when the Dhamma is not really born in being's heart, they follow after conventional words and conventional meanings. So then they have not really understood the essence of the Dharma. So therefore, in the beginning, the reason for saying that is that in the beginning we have to tame our mind through the relative bodhicitta. We have to tame the self-grasping. And only then can we realize the ultimate reality of non-dual primordial wisdom. The root comes down to, in the beginning, to the altruistic mind. And no matter what Dharma we practice, if you have such a mind, that is really the basis of being free of all biased thoughts of attachment and aversion. And in the old days, there was a lot of criticism about one of those lines in Tramgung Kongdrul's calling the guru from afar. So in one of the lines, he says, I have never realized that my own mind is the Buddha. I have not realized that thoughts are Dharmakaya. And so with regard to thoughts being Dharmakaya, some criticism has arisen by some other scholars who refuted that statement, saying that how can thoughts be Dharmakaya? Thoughts are not the Dharmakaya. And so then they felt that there is a real contradiction and kind of a bit of a deception in there. But then how can we understand that thoughts really are Dharmakaya? So one cannot outrightly say thoughts are Dharmakaya or not Dharmakaya in a way, because it depends on oneself, on one's own state of mind, now, whether one recognizes thoughts as Dharmakaya or not. So when we speak about just ordinary, when we think about ordinary unrestrained thoughts or reflections, then one can't really say that these are the Dharmakaya. And so here we are speaking about a complete mindlessness, a complete unmindfulness. So we are not aware of the thoughts at all. So they're complete unrestrained thoughts. We don't have any recognition. And in that case, of course, the thoughts are the cause of wandering in the ocean of samsara. For example, the thought of hatred then becomes the cause of birth in hell, or greed, the cause of birth as a hungry spirit, and so on. So in that case, the 6 afflictive emotions are the seeds of the 6 realms of samsara. So that is for someone who has no awareness or knowledge of these thoughts or emotions at all. But then someone who does understand their nature, and to them, when a thought arises, it is just a thought arising in the mind. And that thought is actually not anywhere separate from the mind, and the mind itself is the Dharmakaya. And so when one recognizes that, then the 5 afflictive emotions mature into the 5 wisdoms. If one does not recognize that, then they lead to birth in the 6 realms of samsara. So one cannot just refute that statement that thoughts are Dharmakaya, saying there's no way, because it really depends on one's own perception, one's own state of mind. And one cannot just make a statement saying like this is like not how it is and so on. It could be, and it is that way depending on how one sees it, depending on one's state of mind. And so, for example, people in different traditions or lineages and so on, all over the place, it is because of these kind of words that people develop misconceptions of the actual view. For example, and some would say, oh, Buddhists are bad. For example, if they're not Buddhists, they would say Buddhists are bad, and if you go for refuge in Buddhism, then you will go to hell. Or maybe Buddhists say that the other ones are bad, and if you go there, then you take birth in the 3 lower realms and so on. So it is these fixations, these biased states of mind that really pollute the mind. And from that perspective, then religion or tradition really does not benefit much. It causes a lot of harm, and that happens a lot in the world. Gampopa had said, if you do not practice the Dharma according to the Dharma, then the Dharma itself will become a cause for falling into the 3 lower realms. So this is because people have graspings in their mind. It's because the fault lies in not understanding the true nature of the Dharma. But the fault does not lie in the Dharma or in the religion. It is just a misconception or a misinterpretation of the teachings. So the root of all of that, knowing or not knowing, comes down to the mind. And the mind must not fall into a biased side, which is an extreme, either this or that, attachment or aversion, but must abide in a state of great equanimity, as it is said in our prayer. So that state of great equanimity, of immeasurable equanimity, is to be accomplished. And so then, from that perspective, we can see that now, even when thoughts arise, when the mind is in this state of great equanimity, then the thoughts they're not unrestrained, they don't cause any harm. So what it depends on is what you do with these thoughts, will they lead to a biased view in your mind? Will you fall into one extreme or not? That is really what it depends on. But it's not that thoughts basically are not Dharmakaya. One can't really say that. So if you are able to not fall into an extreme, even if thoughts arise, then one can say that thoughts are Dharmakaya actually, because the thoughts do not exist separate from the mind. They are actually the mind. And so when one recognizes it, then this is how it becomes. So this recognition really is an experience. It has to be something that you personally experience. Smila Repa had said, meditation must be imbued with an actual experience. And so this is really the essence of all the different teachings, Kagyu teachings and so on. Mila Repa had said, I do not see consciousness, I only see primordial wisdom. And this is really what it comes down to. One needs to cultivate this state of of non-duality. And when there is grasping in the mind will become biased. And so it all comes down to the mind, and all faults also arise from the mind. And therefore, when you recognize that it all depends on the mind, then you will see that actually essentially all religions are good. All religions are beneficial and necessary. They all have good qualities, even though they all maybe they have some faults, but it's not the religion, it's really what people do with that religion. It's the fixation in people's minds. That is what creates the faults, but it's not in the religion itself. So when you understand this, then you will think that all I really need is a genuine love for others. I need to have the relative bodhicitta. I need to have a mind that is free from all bias of attachment and aversion. This is how I can tame my mind. This is how I can melt the ice block of self-grasping. This is how I can attain freedom. It is by realizing the nature of my mind. And when there is no more thought, grasping at me and others, then there's also no thought of pure and impure, good and bad within the mind. Then you are able to let go of all these thoughts, all these fixations, and see everything in a completely pure way. And with a pure view, you see only the good qualities. And so that is then really what we call this immeasurable equanimity. It is that when we take refuge in the Buddha, and we say, I take refuge in the Buddha, what that really is, what you need to understand here is the mind, your wisdom mind, that is actually Buddha. And when you say, I take refuge in the Dharma, you should think all religions in the world are beneficial. And because they all are like kind of a direction sign on the road that gives you a signal on where to go. For example, the Pratimoksha path is like traveling on a car, and the Bodhisattva path is like traveling on a train, and the Vajrayana path is like traveling on an airplane. Basically, it guides you in the same direction. It is just there are different levels to one's realization. So therefore, Rinpoche also said that the progression along the bhumis and the paths is nothing but an increasing clarity in one's realization of emptiness. So, in brief, just think about the good qualities of others and do not think about their faults at all. Cultivate a pure view toward all, an unbiased view. And that means to have faith and devotion to all the higher beings, and to have immeasurable love and compassion for all the sentient beings. And this is what leads to the temporary happiness. Temporarily, we speak about temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness. Where does this temporary benefit come from, really? It comes from having immeasurable love and compassion for sentient beings. And then what's the benefit of it? It is that in all future lifetimes, from lifetime to lifetime, you will take birth in the higher realms. So through the practices of generosity, discipline, and patience, you take birth in the higher realms. You experience the happiness of the human realms. For example, as a result of having practiced generosity, you will acquire wealth. As a result of having practiced discipline, ethical discipline, you will obtain a precious human body. As a result of having practiced patience, you will find good, harmonious companions, a long lifespan, and a beautiful appearance, and so forth. So all the causes of happiness, all the happiness of the higher realms comes from these. And ultimately, these lead to attaining enlightenment. So ultimately, it is shamatha and vipassana that lead to the state of enlightenment. So this is the temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness. And everything, when you really think about it, comes from your own mind. So again, how do we create the temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness? Look at this world, for example. This human world actually is a Nirmanakaya Pure Land. But also it is like a crossroads between going up and down. In this world, we actually are very close to Buddhahood. But also in this world, we can create very heavy causes that will drag us down to the 3 lower realms as well. But the fact that we have found the precious human body is the result of great merit. And merit is what leads to the temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness. Now, there's one Tibetan saying that says, when I'm happy, I recognize it as the kindness of the 3 jewels. So, for example, if things are going well, it's a sunny day, for example, or you're getting some nice food to eat, nothing is without a cause at all. And so any happiness is the kindness of the 3 jewels. So then who are the 3 jewels? The 3 jewels are love and compassion. It is because you love, for example, that you practice generosity. In the Tri-skandha Sutra, the 3-hip Sutra, it says, beings like Chenrezig and so forth have given even just a spoonful of food to an animal and so on. So speaking about practicing even the smallest virtue, there is a result for even the slightest action that you commit. And as a result of these actions, you first temporarily will always experience the happiness of the 3 higher realms. And so the happiness of the 3 higher realms basically depend on generosity, ethical discipline, and patience, mainly. And so the Tibetans say, when I'm happy, I recognize it as the kindness of the 3 jewels. So who actually taught that? It is really the Buddha, or Thigten Somgen, and so forth, who taught who showed us the path of the Dharma, on the 4 measurables and so forth. So through the Buddhist path, we can find ultimate happiness, which is the state of enlightenment. The state of enlightenment is a state of lasting bliss, happiness that is completely free of all suffering. Because it is like space, and space does not have any suffering. Space doesn't suffer. So we call the ultimate state the blissful Dharmakaya that is free of all suffering, the lasting state of bliss. And now when one realizes that, and then you understand that this the kindness or the happiness you experience is the kindness of the 3 jewels. And so. Now, for example, how it all comes from the mind, you can see, for example, in your dream each and every night. Everything really arises from your state of mind, the cause of happiness as well as the cause of suffering. Everything depends on your state of mind. What this is to say is that your experience of happiness and suffering, nothing depends on your outer circumstance, the outer environment. It only depends on your state of mind. And so for this reason, we have to tame our own mind. First, in the beginning, we have to cultivate a pure view that is completely free of any bias. So the teachings are a method to accomplish that. And then secondly, the teachings are a method to cultivate immeasurable love. It is really a pure view that creates all the pure lands. And it is immeasurable love that creates all the happiness in the higher realms temporarily. So when you reflect in this way, you come to the conclusion, I need to cultivate love. Now when you look around in this world, in this human world, people experience all kinds of things. There's a lot of happiness and also a lot of suffering. There's some people who suffer a lot. And when you see that, you can also recognize karma. This is the karma of attachment, or of greed, or of anger, or of jealousy, and so on. So for each circumstance, you can recognize a corresponding afflictive emotion. And for example, regarding that, Thigten Somgen had said, karma, cause and effect, is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. It is an antidote, recognizing that is an antidote to suffering. So the way we should think about it is it's very helpful for us as humans, since we coexist with the animals, to think that, for example, here's me, I have a precious human body, and there is an ant, it has an ant's body. And actually, when you look at what the ant is doing, actually, it is doing this exact same things that I'm doing, 100%. But the reason why we look differently is because of there being a difference in merit. I have greater merit, so I have a precious human body. That's why it is so important for me to accumulate, to create merit. So what does that mean? What is merit? Merit is love. If you have love, then whatever you do with body, speech, and mind will become beneficial for sentient beings. And there will be a result, and the result is you obtaining happiness. So whoever possesses that will achieve happiness. So saying that the happiness was given to us by the 3 jewels, it's really not somebody else giving something to you, but it all arises from your own mind. So that is what needs to be recognized. When you recognize that, then you think that, no, I really have to be careful when it comes to karma. For example, the way it works with karma is that when you like caring for others, when you care for others, then it is just like you're caring for your own hand, for example. So if you take good care of your hand, then your hand will be well. So like when you take good care of others, then you will be well. On the other hand, if you try to eat your hand, you bite into your flesh and eat your hand, then definitely later on you get sick. So likewise, others are like your hand, they're part of you. So if you hurt them, then in future lifetimes, you will get hurt. For example, we can see animals, when they take birth in animal realms, they prey on each other, they eat one another. And so that is because ultimately our minds are not separate. And that is why karma ripens in this way. It is because of the ultimate, really. So again, it is because of our fixation in the mind, the way we think about things, that we suffer. And again, Jigten Sumgön had said, cause and effect is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. Really think about animals over and over again. That's really extremely beneficial when you look at animals. Then you can really understand the infallible nature of karma, cause and effect. And then you can really understand what the Buddha had said, what is meant with all that. And you understand this is really karma. Wherever you go, you see it happening. So this is the meaning of, when the Tibetans say, the quotes goes, when I'm happy, I recognize it as the kindness of the 3 jewels. When I suffer, I recognize it as my own karma. I have done it to myself. That's important to understand. My suffering really has its root in my own mind. So the temporary benefit is to find the happiness of the higher realms. And that's in your own hands. You can create the causes for your own happiness. And then the ultimate happiness also depends on your own mind. When your own mind has become completely pure, then that is your own happiness. That is the Buddha, and there is no other separate Buddha from that. So when you reflect in this way, this is how you gain certainty. And you should reflect until you really completely trust in yourself, in your own understanding of it, and how it is that you tame your own mind. And then there is no need for anyone else to tell you otherwise. You have experienced it yourself. So when you come to this conclusion, then you have gained some understanding of the Buddha's teachings. So then habituate to this, practice it again and again. That's why Milarepa had said, meditation or practice must be imbued with an actual experience. So again, what is the cause of our suffering? It is the afflictive emotions. What do the afflictive emotions, what really are they when you look at them? when you look at them, actually, they're nowhere to be found. They're actually empty. Ultimately, they don't actually exist. Now, for example, if you know that, if you have wisdom, and you get angry, then immediately you will recognize the anger is bad. And then, where is the anger? Then you look at where is that anger actually. There is no anger. Where is it? You can't find it. So that is to realize that the affliction is empty. Or we call that the afflictive emotion transforms into primordial wisdom. Or we call that thoughts becoming dharmakaya. It's actually just different words, but having the same meaning. So this is how you should train your mind. Now, it is a clarity, a clear understanding that arises when you actually experience it, when you actually put it into practice. And this is how the mind becomes tamed or trained. So a practice, a meditation practice, the practice of the Dharma must be imbued with an experience. You must put it into practice. And as a result of that, you will achieve ultimate bliss, ultimate happiness. And also temporarily, you will follow karma precisely and experience happiness. So this is how you recognize and how you accumulate merit. And therefore, and do not downplay even the slightest meritorious action, but accumulate even the subtlest, the slightest form of merit, practice it. And so that is really the key that you have in your own hands. It's not like someone else, no one else is giving you some kind of key, but you actually have that key in your own hands. So now, Dharma friends, please take a break for 20 minutes.